The NASCAR versus 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports trial is officially set for Monday, December 1st. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel and welcome back to the video. As I just said a second ago, the trial between NASCAR versus 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports is officially set for this upcoming Monday, December 1st. This trial could shape the future of stock car racing as a whole and is maybe one of the most important trials and one of the most important things that has happened in the near 80 years of NASCAR history. Both sides are going against each other in regards to antitrust. That is what the main point of the trial is going to be throughout the case. Today, I'm going to go through everything that is expected in regards to the lawsuit trial, what potentially could come, and what the potential rewards could be for both sides, whether each side wins or loses, and talk about some new updates in regards to the trial as well that John Newby has reported in regards to certain things that plaintiffs have centered. So let's begin by talking about the trial. Like I mentioned a second ago, the trial is officially set for December 1st. Now, how long is this trial going to go? Well, according to what has been reported, it is going to be a 2-week trial, but the trial will take place over 10 days. So the trial will begin on December 1st and will go each day for December 1st or 5th, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then, of course, they will not have any of the trial days on Saturday and Sunday when the courts are closed. Then next week, going back on the Monday, it will go from Monday, I believe, the 8th of December up until the 12th of December, which, of course, will be that Friday. So it will be 10 days across the board. It has also been noted as well by multiple reporters in the industry that it has to be a unanimous decision in order for a decision to be made. If it's not a unanimous decision, I don't think that the ruling can be made by Judge Kenneth Bell in that situation. Now, what is going on here? Well, currently, like I mentioned, it is an antitrust suit. You have 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports and many people on their side accusing NASCAR of a monopoly. Now, Judge Kenneth Bell has ruled on certain monopoly things against NASCAR, like are they truly a monopoly on stock car racing, what exactly it is. Basically, Judge Kenneth Bell is going to make a decision throughout the trial what exactly is monopolization of the sport and how much NASCAR has put too much in how much power they've gained and how big of a monopoly they've been on the sport throughout at this particular point. Now, what is at stake in regards to the 2311 Racing and Front Row Motorsports lawsuit? Like I mentioned, monopoly. How much does NASCAR basically have control of the sport currently at the moment? How much control they've had in regards to stock car racing? That is what they're arguing in this case. NASCAR has went against them saying they don't have a monopoly, but when you look at some of the things that come out in recent weeks about the SRX, some of the text messages, now you got Richard Childress who is threatening legal action against NASCAR at this point. You have potential possibility of a big monopoly that has been going on so far. What else is at stake? Money. Currently, at the moment, it has been reported there was, of course, talks of settlement that could have happened, but of course, money is a very important thing. How much money are the teams going to be allowed to have? Because while the teams did get a bigger piece of the pie in the most recent deal, where they got, I think, up to 40 or 45%, I can't remember the exact revenue that they got, they basically argued that that money only went to the first year, and that money basically went away as time progressed and went on. And they want a bigger size of that pie. They want more money coming in. NASCAR argues, I think, that they don't have enough money coming in, even though they just got a $7 billion deal for 7 years, but they argue that money is not one of the most important things in regards to that. What else is at stake? Potential changes to the sport. There is a potential possibility that there could be major overhauls and changes that do happen to the lawsuit in regards to NASCAR 2011 in Front Row. There could be potential leadership changes. And even with the most recent Texas surface, I don't know, even if they reach a settlement, I don't know if the leaders of the sport can stick around in the garage, considering the way the Steve Phelps and multiple of the people in the sport have talked about the teams. People like John Probst and Scott Miller and Steve O'Donnell, Steve Phelps have talked about teams like Live Fast Motorsports and BJ McLeod and Matt Tifft as well. And have talked about other people like Richard Childress, talked about other people like Justin Marks and Tony Stewart and Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney Racing in the SRX. There is a potential leadership change could be coming in the sport depending on what happens. And again, there's potential that a monopoly could be transaction in the sport as well. Now, let's go through everything in each side. Let's say that 2011 Racing and Front Row do not win the lawsuit and NASCAR wins the lawsuit. I still think even if NASCAR wins the lawsuit, there is a potential possibility they're going to have to pay some of the damages in regards to the lawsuit, but 2011 Racing and Front Row Motorsports are likely going to be gone in regards to that. They will likely be shutting down at the end of 2026 if they do lose the lawsuit. Now, of course, there is a potential that the Truck Series program for Front Row could continue, considering they do have 2 2 trucks, but their Cup Series program more likely would not last around, because if the charters do end up sticking around and they don't have a charter, they don't get as much money and they would lose a lot of money at that point. But they would basically go ahead and potentially shut down their Cup Series program, and drivers like Bubba Wallace, Riley Herbst, Corey Heim down the road, Tyler Reddick, Todd Gillen, Noah Gragson, Zane Smith were all under contract with Farmer Motorsports. All those drivers' future would be in question, and they would all be looking for new rides going into the 2027 season. They probably would race throughout 2026, but then at that point, they all be looking for new rides going into 2027, but they probably would race through the 2026 year. Now, if, say, 23XM Racing and Farmer Motorsports do, in fact, end up winning the lawsuit, here's what would happen. Like I mentioned, major changes would happen in the sport. Leadership would change. Changes in leadership. There would be a lot of big things that would change for the sport going forward. And I think stock car racing itself as a whole would look a lot different going forward in regards to that than where it is currently at the moment. There would be a lot of major things that would happen in the sport. It's also been reported recently by Bob Pockers as well that 23XM Racing and Farmer Motorsports are asking NASCAR to pay $300 million in damages, which is a lot of money. $300 million in this antitrust case if they do end up losing the lawsuit. And NASCAR would, I think, have to cover the legal fees, I'm pretty sure. Would have to cover other things as well. But they're asking for $300 million in regards to damages. Continuing on, if 23XM Racing and Farmer Motorsports do end up winning the lawsuit, there is still a chance and possibility that the charter system could be gone. The judge in this case, Judge Kenneth Bell, could rule in favor of getting rid of the charter system as a whole. If you do get rid of the charter system, there is a potential possibility that more litigation could come into play, and teams like Hendrick Motorsports, teams like Joe Gibbs Racing, teams that are not involved in this lawsuit like Richard Childress Racing and Haas Factory Team and other organizations with drivers would potentially be affected in a really, really big way, and you might have more legal situations and litigation that could come into effect because NASCAR could also decide to get rid of the charter system. There's been rumors over the years that NASCAR does want to get rid of the charter system as a whole. And a lot of teams don't want to get rid of the charter system. That's why team owners and many team owners have signed declarations saying they want to get rid of the charter system. But there's also a potential possibility that the charter system could stick around, considering the fact that the judge could rule the charter system is something that could stick around. And there is a potential that permanent charters could become a thing. Now, NASCAR has been open to giving permanent charters at least a little bit in some way, shape, or form. But we're not exactly sure how much on the permanent charter side of things they want. But there's other big things that can happen. Again, changes in potential leadership. That's one thing that's being looked at this point, is there could be potential changes in the leadership of the sport and who is running it at this point. It could be very similar to what happened in the NCAA. It could be new leaders coming in the sport in the future. Next thing, tracks being sold off. NASCAR currently holds the rights to ISC. They took ISC in 2018. There is a potential that all the tracks that NASCAR owns, or some of the tracks, could be sold off. Tracks like Kansas Speedway, tracks like Darlington, Daytona, Martinsville, other tracks in the schedule, like a Talladega, for example, all could potentially be sold off from NASCAR. And another thing, ARCA could be sold off. NASCAR acquired the acquisition of ARCA back in 2019. There is a potential possibility that the NASCAR could be forced to sell off ARCA as well. And there's some other big things that NASCAR could be forced to sell off in regards to that if they do end up losing the lawsuit. Now, the next thing to think about is a potential settlement. Is there a chance a settlement could be reached again between NASCAR and 23XM Racing and Farmer Motorsports? It is a potential possibility that a settlement could be reached. We talked about a few weeks back that there was actual talks, and we all thought there was going to be a settlement reached against NASCAR and 23XM Racing and Farmer Motorsports. So there still is a potential possibility that a settlement could be reached against both parties. But at this particular moment in point, there really hasn't been a settlement that has been reached in regards to the lawsuit at this point. And again, they could rule on a settlement, but then even if a settlement is reached at that point, there is a potential possibility that things could be looking in a much different light, even if a settlement is reached. Now, even if one of the sides wins or the other side wins this case, there was a potential of an appeal. So this trial may not just go into 2025, but there is a potential we could have appeals. And the Supreme Court could get involved in this as well. And this could go into 2026, potentially 2027. We could be dealing with this antitrust case, not just for the end of this year in 2025 through the trial, but we also be dealing with this case in 2026 and 2027. This trial may not not just last for this year, but it may last for many years down the road as well. Of course, unless of course they do in fact decide to go ahead and reach a settlement. But at this moment in point, it is unknown currently at the moment if a settlement is going to be reached. And I hope there is a chance and possibility that a settlement can be reached between NASCAR 2011 Racing Front Row, but judging by everything that's been going on at this point, I don't think a settlement is reached, and I think we're going to trial. And again, this trial could be one of the biggest stories to watch for as we get closer. Now, very recently, there's been a lot of stuff that has been unveiled in regards to that, and a lot of exhibits have been shown in regards to John Newby. Shout out to him for putting it out. They see many things and exhibits have been sent, including sanctioning agreements on Atlanta Motor Speedway, emails from Steve Phelps and Scott Prime, and team letters, chat transcripts, letter from NASCAR to Daytona about 2021 events that took place, assets about ARCA, basically IMSC, other things as well, emails about brainstorming and Gen 7 brainstorming on the Gen 7 car, but some of the things that 2011 Racing Farm Motorsports wants, speaking of which, they want to basically potential change on the single source parts. NASCAR does control the rulings of the next gen car, the Gen 7 car, and they want basically those rules to be changed as well, because you cannot take the Gen 7 car to different series. You can't run it and do different testing at different tracks. NASCAR, of course, has let that happen with Hendrick Motorsports and the Garage 56 entry, and also Toyota's entry that ran at Fuji as well. But NASCAR basically has control of the next gen car, and they're basically wanting that to be lax as well. And that's another thing that could happen, is a single source parts could be changed down the road as well. And governance is something that was mentioned, urgent issues of progress, basically talking about changes at Dover and some sanction agreements between SMI and ISC. Another big thing to think about, is there a potential of this sport having a potential split? I think that a stock car split could happen down the road as well, but I think for the best interest of the sport, and I know some people would like to see a split would not be the best thing for the sport currently at the moment right now. And here's a reason why I think a split would be really, really bad. Think about what's happened to IndyCar. IndyCar and CART and IndyCar basically split in the mid-1990s, because I think something kind of similar to this, except it wasn't charters. It was basically funding and all that stuff and issues there. They had a split in the mid-1990s. IndyCar was extremely popular, and CART Racing, the champion automobile racing team series, that series was very, very popular. They split, and IndyCar racing as a whole has still not recovered since the mid-1990s. If a split was to happen, the sport would be in a much worse position, and we have seen major ratings drops over the course of the last couple of years. There were a lot of races this year, as a matter of fact, in the Cup Series that had under 2 million viewers. There potentially could be, if a split happens, under 1 million viewers for Cup Series races, and that would not be a very good look for the sport. So while I think some people want a split, I think a split would be very terrible for the sport, and I think the best thing that can happen here, again, is a settlement, but a split would not be the best thing for the sport currently at this particular moment in point. At this point, probably some of you are asking me, who do I think is going to win the lawsuit? I'll be real and honest, I think even if like 2011 Racing Forward Motorsports have a case here, I'm not entirely sure 1,000% if they can 1,000,000% win, but I'm also not saying NASCAR can win the lawsuit. I think it can go any way at this point right now. I think both sides have presented some cases throughout the trial, but I think especially after, like I said, the text messages and the text chains that did surface, I don't think that 2011 Racing and Forward Motorsports have anything to doing wrong in this case, and I want to see the sport get in the best position it can. I have been a fan of NASCAR for almost 20 years. I became a fan back in 2007. And for the first time in a very long time, I am very scared about what the future of NASCAR is going to look like. There's some things that I'm very apprehensive of in regards to this trial, and I'm not sure, like I said, who in fact will win the lawsuit. I hope the best thing can happen. I hope that regardless who wins the suit, that the sport of NASCAR doesn't 1,000,000% change in some areas, but I think there's some things that do need to change. I think the teams need to be paid a lot more. I think you need to have driver talent be one of the most important things in the sport, and I think that's something that needs to be looked at this point for sure. I'm very interested to see, though, what will happen and what the repercussions could be for the sport long term. We'll see how that goes. The sport will still be around in 2026, but it could look fundamentally different depending on what happens with the lawsuit, how things go. But I think especially after some things over the years that Jeremy Mayfield has said and Tony Stewart has said and other people have said, and Mark Martin said recently too, I'm ready for the sport to change. I hope it does change in some way, shape, or form, and we'll see what happens. But again, the trial's set for December 1st, and it could be one of the most important trials we have seen in NASCAR history. It's going to be one of the most important things and one of the most important days in NASCAR history for sure. So that is going to be for the trial preview that will take place on December 1st. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Notifications on so if I win a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram and support me on Patreon as well. Let's go to below that and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. Who do you think is going to win the trial on December 1st? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Tomorrow on the channel I'll be doing top 10 drivers on the hot seat going into 2026. I might also have a video around maybe top 10 teams in NASCAR 2025. Probably going to do that video tomorrow for all for the Cup, O'Reilly, and the Truck Series. Then, of course, on Sunday, I'm going to have the Daytona 500 interest for 2026. And I might have a video coming out about Kyle Busch on Monday, potentially, talking about if he'll return to RCR in 2027 or not. And then, of course, I have some other videos coming out as well in the near future. We're going to have a news video dropping either Tuesday or Wednesday. If any other major news breaks, we'll discuss it live on the channel. We got some Corey LaJoie stuff to talk about, some lawsuit stuff to talk about, of course. And we'll probably have reactions to every single day of the trial that is going on. We got content coming up, people like Haley Diggins, Shaman Gisberg, and Carl Edwards, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, Sheldon Creed, Sam Mayer, Frankie Muniz, Cletus Avon, Dodge, Ram, Brad Keselowski, Ryan Preece, Daniel Suarez, Connor Zolshin, Motorsports, Red Bull, Tony Stewart, Casey Kane, Robbie Gordon, Colleague Racing, Will Brown, Brian Cam Waters, all the good stuff, FedEx, Denny Hamlin, Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, all the good stuff we'll talk about on the channel in the coming days and coming weeks as well. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode. I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content, other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.